I'm not very fashionable, but I'm going to clash horribly with that if I don't keep this.
So, first of all, welcome back.
Thank you.
Thank you for making the time, because I know you are literally squeezing this in between an intercontinental flight and moving house.
Yes.
If I remember correctly, that's right.
Yes, I move house tomorrow.
So, I mean, you've obviously, we worked together on a few things over probably 5 years or so, things like that. And, I mean, just so folks know, so you're a classically trained cellist.
Yeah, I have the photo to prove it. There's a cello up there.
And you're a composer as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I guess the other side of perhaps why we know each other more is that you're a kind of digital media tinkerer, I suppose might be. Is that an impolite way to say that? Yeah. And
it's
certainly
kind of the middle class alternative to being a full on geek.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. I don't think I would say that.
Shops at
about
Waitrose.
you. Yeah. And and I think that mashup has been really fascinating for a lot of people to see. It takes basically taking between music and digital media, and doing it more from, I suppose, the musical side,
yes,
as opposed to the digital media side, which is perhaps more typical, I think,
sure,
that you see. And then I'm not exactly sure when I first read about it, but I then suddenly learned that you are now working with Alan Rickman, and you're going to compose a Hollywood film. And I didn't actually realize you did that kind of thing. So can you tell us a little bit about how that came about?
Yeah, so as with all these sorts of things, I was writing music for a very pretentious contemporary dance piece and about water. And actually, that's absolutely true. It was a ballet called Flow. It was very beautifully done. It's a very small boutique performance space in West London called the Print Room. And it was for 6 dancers, and all the music was pre-recorded. It was with cellos and synthesizers, and it's a big old analog thing. It was really good fun. And Alan Rickman was in the audience during the press night and came up to me afterwards and said, "I'm doing a movie, do you want to do the music?" Yeah.
That was it.
Yeah. It's quite simple, really. But I was just at a film festival, and the problem is it's very easy to be quite glib about that kind of thing. And it's a bit like if you walk past a bar, when I came along here, there was a sign in one of the windows saying, wanted experienced bar staff. Has anyone seen a sign saying, wanted inexperienced bar staff? Right? No one wants inexperienced bar staff. But it's very easy to gloss over. So I'd actually worked on quite a lot of films before doing that, but as a cellist. Okay. And I have this very, very specific niche in the cello playing world of basically just doing the scary noises. So stuff that sounds like a fire in a pet shop is generally speaking done by me. So it's not.
So what are some of the films that we might have seen with you scaring us with?
Recently, like The Terminator.
Okay. Right.
So Arnie. So he was. If you've not seen the film, close your ears now. But shooting a machine gun at a helicopter to my cello. Yeah. Right. Wow. But like Sherlock and a lot of those sorts of things. But where it sounds, like that stuff is normally. I don't get asked to play the tune very often.
Right.
And which is a shame. if anyone's in the market for some cello. No. I don't tend to play the tune very often. Anyway, so what that really means is I go on in other composers' writing teams, and so on a certain scale of film, it's not just one person that takes the blame, it's a lot of people that get blamed. And so I often go on in their team, and I'll get sent stuff, and I sort of muck about a bit and put some reverb on it, and then send it off again. And that's sort of it's a very natural fit actually from a lot of my background, which is sort of tinkering with tech stuff. Because actually writing music to film is not just like writing music in an abstract way. There are 3 joyous measurements of time that run concurrently that you kind of have to be translating, and ultimately it's someone else's film, it's someone else's story, and the music has to fall into that like narrative hierarchy in a sort of witty and engaging way. And so you have to get quite good at being shouted at by various people. And
is that because you've sort of come at if you were relatively at the tail end when there's a lot of pressure to try?
Yeah, so they've already spent a lot of money and you're the last big check that they write. So they want to see something happen quite quickly. But with A Little Chaos, which is this Alan Rickman movie with Kate Winslet and stuff, I was really lucky that I was actually brought on. It was the first feature that I'd scored, and I was brought on as they were starting to film it. And so it's a very, very unusual situation where you're writing music and they're filming. So a lot of the film has music in it that I wrote salubriously in the orangery of Blenheim Palace where they were filming it, and stuff like that. It was really, really surreal. But
because normally would you even run after it's shot?
Yeah, normally.
And then you guys are you
have a kind of 6-week sprint,
right?
And you don't sleep, and you just sort of turn it around, and so this was very unusual. I was on it for about a year. And they were editing the film to the music, and the issue you have really is that you've got sequential time, which is not like minutes and seconds like on your watch, which obviously runs 24 hours a day. And then you've got film time, which is done down into what are called frames, 24 frames in a second in the UK, or 25 in the States. There's also 24 point, someone will know, 945 or something, and 30 and 6. And there are all sorts of different measurements of this subdivision. And then there's musical time, which is crotchets and quavers, which you can control. That's completely malleable. And when film editors take out a shot, or someone blinks, or there's a shoe that shouldn't be there, or whatever, that's going to be 6 frames, 8 frames. That's not a musical measurement. So you've already written this beautiful thing that they love, or that they might like, or at least not hate, and you then they say, oh well, that's great, we love that bit. Just change it. But sound exactly like that. Well, that's not really how time works, unfortunately. The unfortunate sequential nature of time is that it ploughs on. And if you take 6 frames here, and you've got a minute-long piece of music, someone whose maths is better than mine can work that out. But 6 frames, the problem compounds, and so by the end, and you're kind of being frame accurate. So music would not go da 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 da. It's going to be da 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 da. It's super precise, but that you want it to sound loose and fluid and all arty and lovely and cuddly.
So do you effectively have to rescore the entire thing from beginning? Effectively, because it's effectively a different.
So you try to isolate all these problems and sort of lock them in, and there's some really smart software that helps with that, but it doesn't fix it. You're ultimately kind of.
Wow. Okay. And is that part of what drives up the cost of these films when they're constantly making these little edits?
No, they keep cutting money from the music. Music's very cheap now. Turns out. No, it's just the soaring visual effects cost, I think. But also we have this weird problem that, other than you hear James playing beautifully earlier on, or LJ's thing earlier on, you hear all this live music and it's brilliant. And I'm very lucky that I as a player, I can. Not like a player, but you know what I mean, as a cellist. I can.
Nobody thought that, by the way, but thank you for clarifying.
just putting that image in your mind. But you have this, the expectation, because when you start on something, they often have what's called a temp track, which is pre-existing music. So it's all finished and polished and lovely and shiny. Yeah. And we're looking at, actors who haven't had CGI done, they've not had their faces changed, or they've not had the colour correction done, and it looks pretty crap, or the visual effects haven't been done, and you're told just to suck it up and get on with it. Whereas when we send music in, it's got to sound finished all the time. It's always got to sound perfect, because people listen to music all the time.
Right.
They don't sit there, they're so used to hearing polished music. And so, I can't quite remember where I was going with that, but yeah, you basically, so...
This is a typical conversation between us all.
Yeah. So music basically ends up having to sound kind of great all the time. So you're in a constant state of juggling. Are they criticising what the music is saying, the emotional content? Are they criticising how it sounds? Mm-hmm. A computer orchestra does not sound like a real orchestra, but you really have to make it sound pretty close. Mm-hmm. A lot of the time, and it's you end up really learning how to translate people's So I'm on something at the moment where you just sort of, I sat for 3 or 4 days and tried to make a kind of film music Babel fish. So I played them something. I was like, so describe this. Thinking, right, I think this is fast. I think this is for strings. I think this is that. And they're like, oh, it's green. I'm like, fuck. Oh yeah, that's like an apple to me. I think I could wear that. That would look great in spring, summer. Sure.
You don't need to mock my countrymen so openly.
But, you come up with all these sort of and then you get these completely irrelevant notes.
Right.
And they say, but we love this piece by Coldplay. Like, but it's set in the 17th century. And you think, well, what's the, or we really love the space in this piece. Or it's really quiet and it's massively loud. You're like, what the hell are you listening to? So yeah, trying to work out how to translate between two.
Yeah, I guess that's a typical sort of, client creative type problem, isn't it?
Yeah, but I mean, sort of hacking it back into the really what I suppose we're supposed to be talking about is like the tech kind of angle of it, is it's not dissimilar to having a technical and a non-technical co-founder.
Right.
You've got someone with this big idea and they're like, well, actually, you've got the following limitations.
Yep.
Like, this won't work.
Yeah.
But then, ultimately, it's someone else's decision that it will work.
Yeah.
And so you make it work, is how it goes.
So let's actually bring it back for a second because you kind of glossed over that one day you were playing in a ballet and then the next day you were a Hollywood composer, which isn't a traditional career path from my understanding. I mean, if I remember correctly from our previous conversation, leaping into that level, so you could be a lifelong composer and never get called up to the big leagues from my understanding. So, I mean, I guess ultimately, I mean, was it just pure dumb? I mean, obviously there's a lot of talent.
Luck.
There's a lot of talent involved as well, but I'm sure there are tons of super talented, super driven, super ambitious people that never quite seem to crack it into that league. And so, I mean,
I don't know. So I likewise started playing the cello when I was 4.
Yeah.
And I did also. I was very small. I had a little tiny cello. It was actually a full-size viola with a spike on the end of it, if you're interested. And I was very chubby and had blonde hair. It's a very cute photograph. But yeah, it was this tiny cello. But I wanted a cello because of the Living Daylights, the Bond film, where he skis down. I wanted a cello case, is what I actually wanted. And if anyone's seen, I know Christian's seen it, I've got this big sodding white cello case with metal ribs on the front. It's the same one. It took me about 12 years to find who made this thing. So I have the same cello case as in the Bond film. Yes.
Excellent. Yes.
That is success. That is success. So I wanted to play I wanted a cello case, and then my parents suggested I should probably have a cello if I wanted a cello case. And
you grew up in Edinburgh?
Edinburgh, yeah. Can't you tell?
You sound so Scottish, I know.
I know. And so did that, and it's very prescriptive going through the kind of the classical canon of like how you learn a classical instrument.
Right.
It's sort of laid. I didn't do the grade system, but it's a very good benchmark of like there are certain technical things you need to know, and then there are certain pieces you should learn, and blah 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 blah. Then you go to college, and I had a sort of fundamental. I wasn't at the Northern, I was in London, but had a sort of fundamental difference of opinion as to how specific you should be. And so the basic idea was that you should be quite wide focused and sort of amenable to do anything and sort of able to sort of pick up and do all these things. And so actually, I personally disagreed.
Okay. And
was doing quite a lot of work at the time with the Media Lab at MIT on gestural response.
And how did that come about? That's also something that doesn't just happen by chance.
That actually did happen by chance.
Really? Okay, all right.
Yeah. And so it was a cello bow with accelerometers and gyrometers and position data and stuff in it.
Okay.
And so I sort of worked with them for a bit and started working with more and more composers further and further into the left field of classical music. Okay. And this is the stuff that really there is an audience of 6 people for. I am 2 of them. So no, it's very, very niche classical music. Okay. Really not high street popular. But that's not to do it a disservice. Like that's, popularity is not the only measurement of success, right? So,
sure. And just, I mean, did MIT want to work with you because they were trying to capture the sound of a cello playing, or what was the
well, they were working with other people as well.
Okay.
So there's a Canadian and an American guy, and there are a few others that but like legit people.
Okay.
And I think it probably got expensive.
Okay.
And then I was a student. I was always quite interested in it and would happily sit in rooms with no windows for hundreds of hours a month, which has served me in very good steading for what I now do. So did a lot of that stuff and ended up learning a lot of what we call extended techniques.
Okay.
Ways of augmenting the control of an acoustic instrument to make it sound like something else.
Okay.
Without electronics, without sort of traditional means of synthesis, trying to use a cello to imitate other instruments. And that's when you go down that path of that kind of thing, it does make it difficult to be asked to play the tune. Really difficult. And so then at that same point, quite a lot of my friends, agent stage friends, were moving across to LA and being sort of assistants to bigger composers. And it's like anything, it's a constant quest for things to sound more expensive for less money.
Okay.
And so if you can get something that sounds different to what a computer can do, you've kind of won. And so I started doing quite a lot of the weird, scary, noisy stuff for friends of mine who were trying to submit demos.
Okay.
And then it just sort of went from there, really. And then, so I actually had amassed quite a few credits before I was asked to score a film, but I hadn't actually ever scored a film before.
Right, okay.
So I'd worked on a lot, so I was aware that I was about to lose my life. So
Right.
I knew it was going to be a lot of work. I didn't actually know how to do the next 6 or 8 months of my life, but you kind of work it out, I suppose.
Okay, so so ultimately, Alan Rickman heard you, didn't know anything about your background,
No.
and called you up or tapped you on the shoulder. What?
Yeah, well, actually, I was halfway through a bottle of wine. He tapped me on the shoulder.
Right.
And that's a surreal conversation.
Okay.
Like Snape asking you to do something. I'm like, huh? Yeah.
Because wasn't there some sort of link into you weren't a fan of Die Hard or something like that? Was it that we had talked about?
No, I mean, it was more. So if you've seen a film called Truly Madly Deeply, where he plays the cello in it,
right?
And we had a very awkward conversation because he got a couple of things wrong, and I didn't want to correct him.
Cool. And then anyway, so he effectively off the back of this, he greenlit you as the composer of the film.
Yeah.
And then you're flown to LA for?
No, I did it from my studio, which does actually have no windows.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Got you.
No
Fantastic.
windows.
Cool.
But it's perfectly soundproofed, so.
So it all worked out.
It all
well,
swings and roundabouts.
Well,
Yeah.
in the end, sort of thing. Okay.
Yeah.
So and then. From here on in, I mean, is composing now like is that what you do now?
Well, I mean, just to again hack draw it back in a lot of the tech stuff. So a couple of years ago, was it a couple of years ago with Jen Gardy?
Yeah, Jennifer Gardy. That's
Jennifer
right.
Gardy, we did
collaboration.
this. Yeah, so Jen, if you were at a previous Thinking Digital, you probably remember Jennifer Gardy is this very engaging Canadian genomicist. Is that correct?
Like that.
Something like that. Clever job.
Something technical.
Something clever job.
Yeah.
And we then turned human genomes into music. It's a data sonification of human genomes.
Yeah.
And I'm super keen to keep cracking on with some more of these. There are a couple of ideas for projects to do. It's just needing some time to do them. So, but yeah, so I mean, ultimately, my division of time is still about 50-50 between playing and writing, as it has been for the last. It's just I'm doing more It seems like I'm doing more writing, but on fewer things. So I'm doing less. I'm doing less, better. If you see what I mean. So I'm doing fewer things, but more of it.
But you're I guess you're in a, if you will, happier place, if you will, professionally than before.
Fun.
Yeah.
No, it's great fun. I mean, because the difference is, I mean, actually at the bigger scale, I'm writing music for a computer game at the moment, which is a lot of fun, but it's really difficult because everything's got to work with everything else.
Okay.
And so it's just an interesting set of technical problems. It's like just really interesting creative problem solving. I'm not doing quite as many concerts, which I do miss. But
cool.
You know.
Well, it's a fascinating story. I mean, I guess for me, ultimately, what I'm taking away from it, because I've known you obviously this time before you were doing what you were doing, and a lot of it just seemed, as you say, I mean, to some extent, playing for very, very niche, or performing or playing or composing for very niche audiences. And I guess for me, my sort of takeaway is that by, staying, if you will, to some extent, like, sort of foregoing any kind of, if you will, planning or career or some path of success.
Oh, there's no plan.
Yeah.
There's no plan.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I think that also it's. I was saying to you earlier on, like basically what I do day to day now is the same as what I did day to day 10 years ago, or 15 years ago. It's just the people I work for are different, but the actual output functionally sounds the same or very similar. So that's either a good thing or a bad thing. I can't work that one out. Maybe it should have changed by now.
Well, we'll see where it takes
Yeah.
you. It's been fascinating. It's been fascinating to hear this story, and I definitely will be looking forward to hearing more as it goes.
Yeah, and time's up.
Time's up. Perfect timing.
Yeah.
Peter,
Thanks so much.
thank you
Ed.
so much.
Thanks.
Cheers.